Hi, folks. Welcome to our channel. I'm really excited for today's session because we're talking about money, financial aid. A lot of my students and families oftentimes ask about how to afford college. So, I have a good friend that's joining us here today who has been in the financial aid space for 15 years and has a lot of knowledge and advice that he would like to share with us in order to understand the financial aid aspects of college. And if this is your first time on our channel, welcome. My name is Tiffany Fu. I'm a college and career advisor who is very passionate about helping families navigate the college application process and find a very fulfilling career as well. So go ahead and subscribe to our channel because I'll be covering all things college and career here. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you all to my good friend, Miguel. Welcome, Miguel.
Hey, Tiffany, how you doing?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Really appreciate you setting aside the time.
Yeah, I love to talk about financial aid. So when you texted me, I was like, let's do it.
Yes. Awesome. Well, can you please share with the audience today a little bit more about your background and what school you went to as well?
Yes, I grew up in Massachusetts. I went to a school called University of Massachusetts Amherst. It's basically the Berkeley of Massachusetts. When I was going through the application process for college, you don't do this, okay, students. I only applied to two colleges, one private and one the state school. And I really decided to go to the state school. One, I got a scholarship. I didn't have to take out any loans. It was free. And two, it was 30,000 people in that school. And so I am an extrovert. I like to be around people a lot. So small colleges don't really work for me. What works for me is a school with like a big campus with a lot of things happening. Like it was never like a dull time. I was never bored at the school. There's always something going on. And that's why I decided to go to that school. And the scholarship, of course, like, it's free money.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And it's funny because you're not the only guest on this YouTube and podcast to have said that they've only applied to one or two schools. And yes, I appreciate that you caveat that. That's not the ideal situation, but good for you, Miguel. You made it work.
Yeah, you got to play the numbers game now because there's a lot more competition than when I went to college.
Exactly. All right, so let's dive right in. Can you share a little bit more at a high level about what financial aid is? I know this is a super basic question, but this is for some of the folks that don't even know where to start, and then we'll get into deeper questions later.
Yeah, so financial aid is basically a system to get you to afford to go to college. The state has some grants, free money that they want to give to students, and the federal government has some grants and money that they want to give to students. And then the colleges themselves have some scholarships, grants, free money that they want to give to students. It's basically a way for you to be able to afford to go to college.
That's great to hear that others would want to help us be able to afford college as well. When I was applying to college, my parents are immigrants from Vietnam, had no idea financial aid even existed. And oftentimes we wait until a few months before you apply to learn a little bit more. So this is good for all the families that are tuning in a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah, immigrant family, same here, immigrant family from the Dominican Republic. My mom did not participate in my financial aid process. My sister and a friend really were the ones that like, oh, we'll help you figure it out. And back then, just so you know, Tiffany, that's how old I am. Back then, FAFSA was on paper. You fill out you fill out a paper FAFSA, you mail it somewhere, then they mail you something back and say, hey, can you make these corrections here? You make the corrections and then you mail that paper back, and then they're like, you're all set. So that's how old I am, right? But you guys are lucky because now FAFSA is online. It's faster and easier.
Yeah, and folks, if you haven't taken a look at the FAFSA website, they've made tons of upgrades, and they even have a chat function that you can ask people questions live. So don't be too shy to just poke around that website. It's great.
Yeah, FAFSA has a long way to go, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's from paper to being online is definitely like an adjustment, a great adjustment.
Absolutely. Next one, I have read that roughly 1.7 million high school graduates don't file the FAFSA and can probably get some grants and whatnot. I would want to learn a little bit more about that space as to why do you think families don't fill out the FAFSA?
I mean, it goes back to what you just said, right? Like there's a lot of lack of knowledge of and understanding that there's financial aid out there. There's money that you can get to go to college, and with that lack of knowledge, then comes that, oh wait, I heard, like I always hear this, Stephanie, which is always like I'm a very fact based person,
Mhm.
and a lot of, because humans are a myth making machine, right? I heard my neighbor couldn't go to college because it was too expensive. And so that right away, that deflates the like, oh, should I even apply? Nah, I'm just gonna let it go. I'm not gonna do it because I'm not gonna be able to afford it. And it's actually like something that when I meet with students, I hear from them, and I have to keep repeating like, no, let's go through the process. The way that financial aid works is you apply, let's say, to 10 colleges, you get into 5 of them. There's 5 doors, and they open all the doors for you when they show you the financial aid. And then you, after they open the doors and show you the financial aid, you can be like, I like door number 1 because they gave
Mm.
me the most financial aid.
Yeah.
So there's this resistance to like even submitting the application because I heard from so and so that they couldn't go to college because it wasn't affordable. I had to change the mindset of like, oh, college is affordable, but you have to go through the process to do it, right? To be able to know if it's affordable to you.
You can look on, say, College Board, US News. There's a lot of different online resources where you can see the average grants and financial aid packages, but you don't know until you are able to be assessed because every family has different circumstances. So
Yeah,
I love that you say, hey, the 5 doors analogy, you
yeah.
got to just fill it out, get to the door so you can turn the knob. Yeah.
Exactly, and they show you, and you don't have to walk through the door, right? You see the financial, and then like, oh, you don't have to walk through this door. You can open the next door and check that one out. Oh, I want to walk through this one because it's the school that's giving me financial aid or the best financial aid.
Yeah.
And you, Tiffany, you brought a great point. Like College Board, especially for private schools, they have a great tool there that tells you how much usually like the school provides for students. So I usually use that when I'm helping students apply to private schools.
Hey, this is a good segue to the
Yeah.
next question, which is around private school versus public. So for me, first generation college student, I didn't apply to any private schools because I didn't think I could afford it. And when I look back, I met tons of great friends working at Google who are first generation as well. And they went to Stanford's, like a lot of these high up private schools, and just learning more about their background and journey, like they paid almost even less than what I paid. Can you share a little bit more about the public versus private schools and the tools that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so just so that we're clear, right? Like when you go to a public school, there's, let's say UC Berkeley, for example, right?
Mhm.
UC Berkeley, you get the, let's say you qualify for it, right? You get the federal grant. I'm going to talk about free money now. We're not talking about loans. You get the federal grant, and then you get the Cal grant. We're in California,
Mhm.
and then UC Berkeley might be like, oh, we have like $8,000 to give you. If you apply to a private school, those private schools have bigger endowments, meaning that they have their own money, they have invested in things, and they have like there's a small school in Massachusetts that's worth, their endowment is $2 billion, but they only have 3,000 students, so they have so much
Mm.
money to give out to the students, right? And you still get, if you're in California, you apply to a private school here, you still get that federal grant, right? You still get that Cal grant, and then you get this private school that has a lot more money than what a CSU can offer. So what
Mm.
you should do is that you should definitely apply to UC Berkeley. You should definitely apply to a CSU, a few CSUs, a few UCs, but definitely apply to a few private schools. Because if you get into those schools, you'll notice that a lot of the schools have a lot of money, and they'll provide you with a lot of money where you really don't have to pay that much, especially if your EFC is 0. And we can dive dive into that. But the
Mhm.
lower, like those private schools have a lot more money than public schools, and that's why they can give you probably more money if you pick the right private school to apply to, right?
Yeah. I would have loved to known you
Yeah,
when I was applying to colleges back then because I think it could have been really different. I mean, not mad at going to UC Berkeley, loved it. It was a great
yeah,
experience. Knowing that there were other options is such a relief as well because UCs are so competitive. It's the number one applied to schooling system in the entire world.
yeah.
So a lot of the misconception around affordability because it's a public institution or institutions
Yeah.
is causing a lot of the rise in applications as well.
This last year, I think the UCs had the most applications in 100, I think 105 years or something like, I don't remember exactly.
154. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
154, yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness. So your chances, if you could get into like UC Berkeley, UCLA, your chances of getting into a private school were probably better than applying to a UC, right? So
Yeah.
that's when I mean, I deal with financial aid, but I dealt with the application part of it. And I always tell students, apply to a few UCs, and if you get the fee waivers, you can apply to 4 UCs, 4 CSUs, and then try to apply to a few private schools. Because if, again, like they are very affordable because they have the grants to be able to provide you with a lot of money, a lot of free
Yeah.
money.
Think this through, folks. Hopefully, anyone listening right now, expand your college list to include some private schools.
Yeah, can I just mention one more point?
Yeah.
Please leave the state. Massachusetts has like, I don't know how many colleges, but they have some of the oldest colleges in America. And because of that, those schools have like huge endowments. And again, endowments is free money that the school has that they can now shuffle back into the student, right, body, right? So look at some schools in like some places in the East Coast. I guarantee you'll find that a lot of schools provide a lot of money and they're pretty good schools.
I love that you brought this up because a lot of the students I work with they're in the West Coast, obviously. And they, we love the West Coast. Yes, the weather's great. And the misconception is East Coast is so cold and, people are mean or straightforward vibe and all that sorts. But once again, like do your research, look on YouTube. There's a lot of students that are sharing their everyday experiences. See if, you can vibe with it.
Yeah. You're only there for 4 years. You don't have to live there forever.
Yeah, there you go. Great. So we're continuing the conversation around affordability, obviously. What's your intake from need blind admissions? Because I've seen students get really nervous about, I'm going to need a lot of money. And if I am making this very clear in my applications, is it going to lead to a rejection, for instance?
No. This is a very important point, right? These schools are looking at you, your GPA, your activities, the classes that you've taken, right? Like, are you taking AP classes? Are you taking honor classes? Are you an athlete? That's first and foremost. That's what they're taking into account. Right? What kind of student are you? The financial piece comes later. So it's very important for you. I wish like ninth graders will watch this video, right? It's very important for you to start getting involved from ninth grade on, like with different activities. You can play sports, try to do well in your classes, try to take challenging classes, and that will lead you to success once you decide to like apply to colleges. Because at the end of the day, that's basically what they're looking for. Again, your personal statement is important because they have to know that you can write and also that you have the story to tell. And everybody's very unique. So everyone has a story to tell.
That's good to hear. That reduces some anxiety, I'm sure, for folks listening as well, that they don't only look at what you're going to need from the institution within a financial and affordability perspective. It's the whole package.
Yeah. A holistic view, right? That's what those most schools like they pride themselves in that view.
Absolutely. And what if financial circumstances change for parents, right? COVID times, and it's been going up and down. Job stability has been in question for a lot of families as well. What if things change? What can the families do?
This is a great question, by the way, Tiffany. I love this question. So we're using this year, we use the 2020 taxes to complete your FAFSA, right? But between that and now we're in 2021 was there, right? And your parents could have lost their jobs. They could have been fired. The company closed because of COVID. A lot of things could have happened. Because of that, you can complete your FAFSA, financial aid form, right? Submit it to the college, and then you should reach out to the financial aid office and say, actually, like that's 2020, right? Before we went through all these situations with COVID or my dad's company closed. Our financial situation has changed. Can you please let me know what are the steps that I need to take in order to be able to appeal for aid? And then all the colleges will tell you that you have to fill out a form, or you have to contact a certain person to be able to like appeal for aid, and then you'll be able to demonstrate, because when a person gets fired or let go of a job, like they have a letter, and you can just submit those documents to the school, and then they will then shift their, we're using the 2020 taxes. Well, it doesn't really apply because that person was unemployed for the whole 2021. Now financial aid situation changes, and they will help you figure out like if they have to give you more grants or how can they help you like before going to that school. But you should do this before you decide on a school, right? It's March. I got into late March, early April. I got into all my schools. My financial situation changed in 2021. Let me reach out to these financial aid offices and figure out how they can help me like boost my financial, if I can get more grants or more scholarships from the schools.
Yeah.
This is very important. A lot of people are like, everything is set in stone because I submitted my 2020 taxes. I'm like, nope. If a situation changed, a parent got sick, injured, or anything like that, you need to let the schools know that, because they will definitely like look into how they can help you afford coming to the school. They want you to go there, right? So they're gonna try to figure out a way to help you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Reach out as soon as possible. Learn, right? The institutions won't know your situation unless you advocate for yourself.
Yes, very important. Like they don't, nobody can read your mind, right? So you
Yes.
have to like, as soon as I know what schools are, like 3 or 4 schools that I'm interested in, let me reach out to the financial aid office. You can email them, they'll tell you exactly what you have to do. Here's the process
Mhm.
to appeal for financial aid.
Yeah. And a lot of families don't realize that these institutions have a good amount of staff, right? You sometimes you think when you send that email, you do a phone call, you might get a voicemail and you'll hear back months later. That's not actually the case. I've seen with a lot of institutions, they get back to you within a reasonable time.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it more in like the Cal Grant. Like when you're applying for the Cal Grant, you have to call somebody. Like they put you on hold for like 80 minutes. But
Oh,
the schools are
okay.
pretty like, they might get back to you within like 24 hours. Yeah, but they need to know your situation in order to be able to like help you figure out how to get to that school. And again,
Mhm.
this is like, these are the skills that will help you later on in life, because you'll encounter different situations where you have to reach out to somebody and say, hey, like this is really not working out for me. How can you help me figure it out? And they
Mhm.
will help you. But definitely you need to reach out,
I love that point. This is teaching life skills.
right?
Another follow-up question to this, actually, I've heard that it's better to have your parents do the call versus the student. Like, what is your take? Who should be doing the call?
I believe the parents should do the call, but
Yeah.
the situation, a lot of students that I work with, parent
Mhm.
doesn't speak English, or they're
Mm,
undocumented, or they don't really understand the process. And I think it's actually a benefit to the student, because I had to deal with this, and like those skills help me later on in life. Like, oh, I have to call
yeah,
somebody and explain a situation. Oh, I've
yeah.
done this before. Let me do it again. So it turns out that the student is the one that ends up doing it, and in a way, like they're more invested in getting things done. So I think it might be easier for the student to get it done, right? And the school might be like, hey, we need to talk to your parent. Great. Can I'm gonna have to translate, or do you need to get somebody that can translate for them?
Yeah.
So I think I'm with like parents calling, but a lot of parents like don't understand the system and they don't know what to say.
Mhm.
And I think students can take like over that and like try to make it like, it's my process, I should like take over it.
Yes. Wow, I'm getting goosebumps. This is giving me
Flashback.
nostalgia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nostalgia. Yeah, yeah,
nostalgia of, like, us applying to college. I'm sure we had our older siblings and cousins just helping us out 'cause
yeah.
don't
They just like, oh, tell me how much I have to pay, because they don't understand there's a process to this, right? Like there's like a lot of things that we have to fill out,
yeah,
and
they're like,
complete.
"Just give me the number."
And just give me the number and I tell you if I can pay it or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like sports. It's like, "Can I have some money to join this sport? I just need shoes," or whatever. Oh,
Yeah,
man. But look at where we are at now.
right.
When's the best time to submit FAFSA? I've heard the sooner the better. I'm sure, like, is it bad if you turn it in late?
So I will say the sooner the better.
Mhm.
If the deadline is March 2nd for most schools. If you submitted February 28th, it's not the end of the world, because there are two grants that are guaranteed in California again, that are guaranteed to you. If you qualify for the federal grant, the Pell Grant, they have to give it to you. There's no like, oh, you submitted on the 28th, we can't, we're not out of funds, right? The same
Mhm.
thing for the Cal Grant. You submitted on the February 28th, we ran out of funds. No, those grants come from the state and the federal government, so they have to have those funds. Now, when you submit a FAFSA kind of late to a school, and that school has already kind of like figure out like where they're gonna send different financial aid, like from their own grants, it might cost you some issues, right? They're like, oh, we ran out of our own money, or we have little to give you now because we like now figure out like where our money is going to different students. You should have submitted this sooner. So my advice is FAFSA opens October 1st, I want to say, and you should as soon as it opens, you're like, okay, let me start taking care of this, so that at least the school has your information and they can start figuring out like, well, okay, this person has an EFC of 0. They need to get this much money. We should be giving them more money. So the sooner you do it, the better.
Heard that now. Miguel says the sooner the better. October 1st. Block your calendar. Don't have any other plans, because sometimes it takes a while, right? You need to get all your documents and you got to prepare. So, any advice there on how to just make it as efficient as possible?
Yeah. So the first thing I will do,
Okay.
FSA ID, you first do that first.
What's
FSA
that?
ID is basically an electronic signature to be able to submit your FAFSA electronically, right?
Hmm.
You do that for yourself. And if your parents are US citizens or green card holders, then you do it for them.
Hmm.
Then you go gather those taxes, and then you go figure out like, okay, let me log into the FAFSA with the FSA ID that I just created, and let me start completing things. It's pretty simple. It's like 30 minutes. FAFSA should take you like 30 minutes. And you might be able to use the FSA ID that you created for your parents to then have the IRS complete most of the FAFSA for you when it comes to your parents' financial aid information. So it's pretty simple. It's just like I will start there. Let me create my FSA ID, and let me do one for one of my parents. You just only need one,
Okay.
and then we'll be able to complete the FAFSA faster.
Awesome. Okay. That's good. That's a huge
Yeah,
tip. I will use
yeah,
that for
yeah,
the
yeah.
future. Thank you. All right. So, CSS profile and FAFSA. Can you share a little bit more about the differences? Should parents fill out both? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so you definitely have to fill out the FAFSA for
Mhm.
all schools. The CSS profile is only for private schools, and not all private schools require the CSS profile. The FAFSA will take you 30 minutes. It's not that confusing. The CSS profile, it's some depending on what schools you're applying to and how many questions they want from you, how many answers they want from you. You're talking about 120 questions, an hour and 45 minutes, where they ask you from the. So right now we're in 22, right? They will ask you about 21, 22, and then 23. They're going to ask you information about financial information about all these things. They might ask you, how many cars do you own? Do you own a house? How much are you paying in a mortgage for that house? Do you own any other property? It's so many financial questions, and this is because the private schools want to make sure that when they give financial aid to a student, is the person that needs it. So if you're making $1 million and you fill out the CSS profile, they're probably gonna be like, your family makes $1 million, they own like 10 cars, they don't really need for us to give you financial aid. They can probably afford to pay for you to go to college. But when you're like, again, like your EFZ is zero, you're from a population that's like low income, then like it will be easier for you to be able to the school say, okay, this person needs the money. That's why they're asking a lot of questions, and a lot of people get annoyed by it. And then the other thing that the CSS profile has that the FAFSA needs to have, it's a note section. Right? You'll be able to put like little notes so that the schools, when they get the FAFSA, they can say like, oh, this student wrote in here that the parent got injured 3 months ago. Oh, they're not working. Got it. So now we know that the student's going to start an appeal process,
Mhm.
and we know. But the FAFSA
Mhm.
doesn't. That's my thing with the FAFSA. It doesn't have anywhere to put notes, which then
Oh,
like causes more like work for you to reaching back and forth with the school. The
yeah.
CSS profile has a section where you put notes, and then when the schools reach out to you, they already know like, oh, this person has a few situations that we're gonna have to work with to figure out how to get them to come to the school by giving them good financial aid.
Yeah. That's a good point, Miguel. I never
Yeah,
realized that difference. I wonder if
yeah,
we can
Eh,
escalate some feedback to the government
yes,
there. That makes a lot of sense.
Eh,
Great. Well, thank you for sharing more about that. I do hear from a lot of students and families that the CSS profile, they give up halfway through, right?
you
And
cannot. You have to continue it because there's like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? You have to just walk there. Yeah, you have to walk there. I got to the end of the rainbow. I finished the application. I submitted it. Now I just have to wait for to see what the schools are going to give me.
exactly.
Don't close any doors.
Mhm.
Like keep doors
Exactly.
open to see what happens. Yeah.
I always try to use the analogy like you put X amount of hours into work, you get paid hourly, right? Yeah, sure. This takes a few hours and some stress, but
Yes.
it's worth it. The payout will be worth it.
Yes.
All right. What happens if you knock on those doors, you see all these packages actually don't satisfy my need, and
Mm.
I might not be able to go to some of these schools? What can they do in this instance? Can they appeal?
Yeah, I mean, you can appeal, and schools are gonna make you either fill out a form or explain why you're appealing. And so there might be a reason. It's like, tell me why you think that you're not getting enough financial aid, right? And I think it's the same thing. Like, oh, we have this gap. My parents cannot afford that gap because they just earn this much money, or because we're helping somebody in the family that just like whatever it is. But they'll ask you for a reason. I think everyone that thinks they need more financial aid should appeal, and usually the schools will come through. It might not be, you might need $10,000. They might not give you $10,000. They might give you $5,000 and say, okay, now you need to come up with the other five on your own.
Yeah.
So if you feel like it's not enough financial aid for you, you should definitely appeal. but they will ask you the reasons or the reason why you're appealing that.
Got
Hey,
it. Okay, great. So you have to have a really good reasoning
yeah.
and some data to back it up as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So while we're talking about not being able to afford loans and all that, I have a lot of friends that are still paying off college loan debt. And I'm sure you do too. You might know
Yes.
some folks. And there's a lot of different strategies on should you be paying it all off at once, or or trying your best, or should you really take your time? But overall, do you have any advice about loan forgiveness and loans overall?
Yeah, so a few things, right? If debt, you should never pay the minimum on your debt, right? So on credit cards are like, oh, just pay us $50, and it's like, no, you're paying the principal, you're not paying the interest, and what's happening is that that's gonna keep growing, right? So you should pay as much as you can of your loan, right? This is in the moment right now. This is before, and this advice is for like before you even get to the school and taking the loan, right? Once you take the loan, what there's two kinds of loans that the government gives you: the subsidized one and the unsubsidized loan. You always want to take the subsidized loan. The subsidized one is the one doesn't have interest while you attend college. So that's the one
Mhm.
that you want to take if you're going to take any loans. Two, you can start paying for your loans slowly but surely. Like I knew some people that were like, I'm gonna work this summer and I'm gonna make $3,000 and I'm gonna pay for my loan. And this is they're like a sophomore in college.
Mhm.
You can pay for your loans as soon as you get them. You can start set up like a little small payment plan that you pay whenever
Ooh,
you want to while you're in college. And some
yeah.
folks that I knew were doing that during the summer. Also, you don't. This is way before you even take a loan. You can also do a payment plan. So if you feel like I don't want to, and a lot of my students do this, like we don't want to take loans. What do we do? I was like, you contact the school. As soon as you know what college you're going to, you contact the school, and then you set up a payment plan for 10 months. And the
Mhm.
school will tell you this is how much you have to pay me per month, and that way you don't have to get like bogged down with loans later on in life. Or you can do a mix. I'm gonna do some of it is gonna be a payment plan, and some of it is gonna be taking the subsidized loan, which is the good loan, right? Like
A
the one
good
that doesn't
loan,
have it.
subsidized.
Yeah,
Remember
subsidized.
that.
Subsidized is the good one. The
Yeah.
colleges, and then sometimes even the state of California has their own, like the UCs have their own loans. Those are the loans that they also some of the some of the ones for the UCs are subsidized, and some of the ones for the private schools, if they give you a loan, they're also subsidized, meaning that you probably won't have to do any interest while you attend the college. That's what you want. You do not
Mm,
want to take the unsubsidized loan that will have interest while you attend college.
yeah. Ooh, this question I learned the most from. So thank you so much.
Of
I
course.
am going to share this far and wide,
Yes.
hearing more about loans. All right, last question for you. Any other advice around affordability?
Yes, I think it starts with the application process before you get to the financial aid process. And we're talking about California. You should definitely apply if you can, right? If you qualify, apply to some UCs, apply to some local CSUs,
Mhm.
and then some private schools. If all those doors open and you're like, man, these UCs are pretty expensive, I can't really go there. The private school didn't really give me that much money. The
Mhm.
CSU, that your local CSU, is the cheapest option that you'll have, where you'll be able to still get a bachelor's degree, and I mean, you have to live at home, which for some people might not be something that they want to do. Uh, but it will be the most affordable option that you have to go to college. It's only the tuition for a CSU is about $7,000. Uh, you can you'll get some grants from the state of California that you might be able to use for that. Maybe you only have to pay like $2,000 out
Mhm.
of pocket for a
Yeah.
year. So it's the most like your
Yeah.
your college application should be like part of like what you're thinking when you're applying to colleges, like figure out what are the different options for you financially.
Exactly. Knowing your options. What are your thoughts on community college?
So the Tiffany, like there's again, like I'm a stats, but like I'm a data person. The numbers for community colleges tell us that a lot of students do not graduate community college. That they go
Mhm.
there and they just like oscillate, they just like waste a lot of time.
Mm.
Yes, I think it's if you're a person that's like, I know where I'm going, I know I'm gonna transfer out, I know
Yeah.
I'm gonna go there, I have a path, and I know what I'm doing. I say go community college is cheaper, it's the cheapest of all the options.
Mhm.
But I've known a lot of people that have gone to community college and then 2 years later they just drop out because they
Yeah.
they like, oh well, I went to a class and then it felt like high school to me, so I missed the next class and the next class, and then it's you have to be a driven person to go there and be
Yeah.
like, because it's a system that will like it will almost feel like high school to you, and you
Yep.
have to follow through. That's the difference.
Yeah. Wow, Miguel, this is so insightful, and you're just speaking all facts.
Yes.
Honestly, a lot of the students that I work with, they don't want to go to community college and they work so hard and it just comes around affordability and it just feels like defeated, I guess, at times, right? So it's tough for the psyche and how do you really continue on that path? So Miguel's saying you need to be really determined and know exactly your plan in order
Mhm.
to succeed in that space.
Yeah, and the beauty of community college that they have when you go to the school and you meet with your advisor there and you tell them I'm trying to transfer out, they'll lay out a plan for you. First semester you take these 5 classes, second semester you take these five, and like they'll explain to you exactly what you have to do. And the
Mhm.
beauty of that is that in California, they use this need to have spots, reserved spots for students that are going to UC, right? They're transferring from a community college to a
Yes.
UC. So it's a win-win situation, but then you have to put in the effort. Like I have to follow through.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And I love that you brought up the guaranteed path because it also helps a lot of folks have an exact plan and blueprint to follow and
Mhm,
execute as well.
mhm.
Right, Miguel, I can talk to you all day. You
Yes.
are a wealth of knowledge. And you know what, folks? Comment down below if you think we need to invite Miguel back, because I'm sure there's going to be more questions that we might have for once the applications open closer to October as well. So thank you so much again. And go ahead and subscribe because we'll be sharing more helpful information for all things college and career here. See you next time.
Bye, Tiffany. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.